India tops the list of, when it comes to countries, which has the most numbers of women and boys and girls trapped in modern day slavery, and a large number and percentage of that is women and girls. And so, you know, I found out that that system operates and functions not only because there are a lot of men buying women for sex and girls for sex, but also because you have police and government officials who are literally and figuratively in bed with the sex industry. And what I mean by that is oftentimes police are, you know, when I interviewed a bunch of rescue workers, what I was told was that police are so in cahoots with brothel keepers that they'll often, in order to do a raid on a brothel or run a rescue mission, rescue workers need police to come in with them to make arrests, and oftentimes the police would tip off the brothel keepers beforehand, collect their bribes, and off they went. And by the time rescue workers would get there, the brothel would be emptied of girls, or the girls would be hidden. And this happens so much that it's becoming, you know, the police became essentially an impediment to rescue missions. I think that the red light areas obviously exist. The government does turn a blind eye to them. Oftentimes the patrons, as I well discovered later on in my trip, include government officials and police. And I think that I mean, there's so many things that I discovered even in terms of the level of exploitation, because the strategy right now to deal with sexual exploitation in India is, you know, it's pretty much a three-step or three-pronged kind of approach, which involves rescue, rehabilitation, and repatriation. And I could tell you a lot about the limitations of all of those approaches, but even with rehabilitation right now, you know, oftentimes people, you know, you rescue girls and you put them in rehabilitation centers, and the idea is to teach girls and women new skills so that they can go out and use those skills in order to procure funds or some sort of money to survive. But oftentimes the girls, they don't want to be there, and if they're minors, they're there forcibly between 1 and 3 years, and they're not allowed to leave. And sometimes the critique of those centers is that some of them are fantastic and doing really great work, and some of them function more like sweatshops.
During your time there, you ended up being basically forced out of India, forced to leave India. Tell me a little bit about how that happened.
I was visiting Siliguri, which is in West Bengal, and in that city, that's what's called the chicken neck city, and it's called that for that reason because girls and women are trafficked in from Assam, Nepal, Bhutan through West Bengal, in particular through Siliguri, and so the borders are very porous. So considering that it's such a central zone and vein through which girls are trafficked, you'd think there would be a lot more rehabilitation centers, rescue operatives, people on the ground working on behalf of girls and women who are trafficked, and there aren't. And I came to Siliguri to meet with someone who is in fact running a rescue operation, and she works on behalf of children and women and their social welfare. And so and she's very brave. She runs rescue missions on her own or with just 2 other people, and she's been doing this for a number of years on very little funding. And so I went to visit her, and we ended up staying there. And through my time with her, I interviewed other people and ended up finding out about a story in which a 13-year-old girl had been forced into prostitution. An auntie figure had asked the girl to accompany her on a shopping expedition to the city, and this girl's from a little village. The girl said yes, she had no reason not to trust the auntie figure, and the next thing she knew, she found herself in a room in a hotel where there were men there, and they raped this girl and videotaped the rape and told her that they would put it on the internet if she did not comply with their demands. And in a country where something like that can mean the difference between a girl's life and death, I don't think she had much choice or say in the matter. And so for 2 years she was forced to service countless men, and those men included police officials and government officials. And when I came to find that piece of information out, it wasn't long after that I was, for no reason, picked up by police, my passport was eventually confiscated, and I was told, and berated in fact, for stepping foot into the red light areas. And my contention is, you know, do you similarly go after, it's not illegal to go into the red light area, but why aren't you going after the numerous men who frequent those areas and buy women? Why don't you go after traffickers? Why don't you go after brothel keepers? Why don't you go after the police and government who are visiting these areas or have separate brothels set up for themselves? But instead they targeted me, I think, because I just touched something that was close to home and possibly incriminating, and then I was deported and detained and then summarily deported.